Hi everyone, thank you for joining us so promptly today. Hopefully there'll be other people logging in as I introduce you this afternoon, this morning, wherever you happen to be in the world. We're based here in the UK, and so are our speakers, but it is a presentation that's really based on for anybody in the world that's interested in learning about technology in the apparel and textile industry. So, first and foremost, hi, I'm Heather. I'm from juststyle.com. I'll be sort of introducing and moderating for you today, and also be asking the questions that you send in that I can put to the speakers at the end of the presentation today. Just to tell you a little bit, today's presentation is All Sewn Up, the Fashion Software Essentials, which is brought to you by two experts in the field of technology. The first to speak today will be Matt Stannard, and he's the Chief Technology Officer from 4Ps Marketing. Just tell you a little bit about Matt. Matt is an innovator, excited by API and new technologies. Matt's interest in data and technology began at an early age, and this led him to study computer science and read modules on intelligent internet commerce, advanced artificial intelligence, and advanced neural networks. In his role at 4Ps, Matt is responsible for maintaining the company's position at the cutting edge of technology. Following Matt's presentation today, you'll also hear from Paul Rogers. Paul is an industry expert from Sapphire Systems plc, and Paul has worked at Sapphire for nearly 20 years, and he specialises in software challenges and requirements for the fashion and retail industry. He's been working with SAP Business One since 2003, when the product was launched in the UK. Sapphire have now implemented SAP Business One to over 500 companies, and Paul is well versed in identifying the back office challenges faced by the fashion sector and working with businesses to rectify these issues. So the format of today's webinar will be approximately 40 to 50 minute presentation by our two speakers, followed by maybe 10 minutes or so section for open Q&As, open questions with today's speakers. If you do have a question during the presentation, if you can pop it into the questions box, which is in your GoToWebinar menu, and then I can put it to Matt and Paul at the end of the presentation. Obviously, we do have limited time, so if we don't manage to ask your question live today, I will be passing them on to your speakers for today, and they will be able to get back to you and answer you offline. So don't worry if I can't ask it today. If you also happen to experience any technical difficulties, then you can also get me through the chat box or again through the Q&A box. But rest assured, we are making a recording of today's presentation, and it will be made available to you hopefully within the next couple of days via a direct link, which we will email out to you, which will take you to a page on Just Style where you can view again on demand, and obviously share with your colleagues and watch it whenever you wish. So let me pass you to the first speaker we have today, which is Matt. So just give me a few seconds just to swap over and share screens with Matt, and he will fill you in on his presentation, and I hope it all goes well and you all enjoy it. But as I say, please send me any questions that you have. Over to you, Matt.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Heather, and hello everyone. I'm just going to get the presentation up so we can rock and roll. So hopefully you can all see our screen. So I just want to take you all through what I'm going to cover in my bit of the talk, the agenda. So I'm going to start with a little bit of an introduction just about myself, who are 4Ps, part of the NetBooster group, what our vision is, because I think it fits quite nicely into sort of this overall general all sewn up theme, and some of the key challenges that I see our clients face. I've got to take us through a little story. I'm going to bring in someone that I'm going to call Barry, just to see some of the things that you may relate to when you're doing things online, looking at how that ties into understanding performance, and then just a little bit touching on trending and machine learning, and finishing up with some key takeouts. So, about me, as Heather said, my name is Matt Stannard, Chief Technology Officer or Director of Innovation at 4Ps. If you wanted to sort of see some of the things I'm really interested in, do feel free to follow me on Twitter. I like doing cool things with data and analytics, being the cloud and voice search, which is becoming quite big in our industry. And then just to give you sort of a bit of some feedback on what makes me get a little bit annoyed, and that's things like lazy advertising. I think that if you guys have been following Google recently, in the UK, Marks and Spencer's stopped their advertising on Google platforms because they couldn't guarantee information wasn't being shown alongside extremist content. So I think sometimes the advertising world is not necessarily good at helping give people control. So it's something I don't really like people that are lazy about it. And also over-reliance on Google search. If we've got people in the US, being in the US is quite a big ecosystem as well. So then just to go to 4Ps, who are 4Ps? We are a search agency. We're based in the UK, but last year we were bought by a group called NetBooster, who have presence across the globe. So we are founded by two wonderful guys, Matt and Chris. In the UK, we have 140 staff across 3 offices, and we have 120 odd clients and help them to achieve 10 million turnover each year. Just because this is retail focused, to give you an idea of some of the guys that we work with, Selfridges, Burberry, Argos, the White Company. So hopefully there are some names that people may have heard of. And then working in the search space, we're really, really pleased that we've been so highly recommended for many awards. And last year we won 3 RAR Digital Awards, which are sort of one of the most prestige awards, I'd say, in the industry, because that's ones that our clients vote for. So we were actually voted Best E-Commerce Agency alongside Best Search Agency as well. So we're really happy to sort of like that people are recognising the work we're doing in the industry. So as any good company will have a vision, and I think this is particularly pertinent to today's webinar, and our vision is to redefine marketing by connecting digital and physical customer journeys. And that's because the digital world is something that we touch and do things in all day, but actually there's a real reliance on the real world to deliver some of those things. So making sure those two worlds are joined up and we understand how people traverse them is absolutely crucial to doing things right and getting success. So just to share some of the challenges that I face with clients that I work with, and that is that a lot of them have websites that are not really scaled for growth. And what I mean by that is that when you do things like search marketing, you're trying to acquire more customers. You can use things like the cloud to give you sort of more horizontal scale, more capacity. But at the end of the day, all of those things are going to give you more demand for your product. So you can have the best, most scaled up website being able to handle hundreds of thousands of customers. But if you don't have back-end systems that can cope with that, you're going to have a lot of disappointed people. So I feel sometimes people just forget that actually more demand in the digital world means you also have to have that capacity in the real world. The other thing that really is a big challenge for a lot of businesses, and certainly a lot of my clients, is data silos. So most businesses have got a lot of customer data, they've got product catalogs, they might have analytics data. All of those things sit usually in different places. And so what that can mean is you get limited insight. So you don't necessarily get a very good view of what's happening because Department A has information that would actually be quite relevant to Department B. So I'm going to jump into just a little bit of a story, because when we pitch to clients, we like to try and just sort of explain a few things about real world situations that might happen. And my story, as I said earlier, is about a gentleman called Barry. I don't really know if this man here is called Barry. I found him on Google Images and he looked like a Barry, so I picked him as Barry. I'm saying that he's a banker in London. He commutes to work in the city every day. He uses his smartphone. And I'm sure, like most people, if you're sort of commuting to work, it's wife's birthday, you might get your phone out and start to look at things. His wife Louise has said that she wants a cashmere jumper for her birthday, and she likes the colour pink. So this is just to give an idea of something that may happen in the real world. It may be something you've done before. So one of the things that most people might do if they're looking for something is they might search in a search engine like Google, and in this case search for something like pink cashmere jumper. And usually search is pretty good these days. A lot of product searches will give you PLA, which is the picture of the products. On the mobile, that'll be at the top of your search results. On desktop, it will be on the right-hand side, sometimes at the top. And it will show you a list of people who are bidding for that term. So I can see there's a number of retailers here who are showing me what products that they've got available to me. So Barry then clicks through on the pink cashmere jumper, and something happens that I'm pretty sure has happened to most people when they've looked for something. You get very excited about finding something, only to find the size that you want or the product you want isn't in stock. So you straight away got a very poor, disappointed customer. And that, in my world, delivers a poor experience in two sides. From our customer, from Barry's side, he's found a product, he's got what he wants, but it's got limited availability, so very poor experience for him. But sort of looking at the merchant side of that sort of journey, looking at the analytics, they're going to have non-converting users. They're paying for that traffic to come to their website, and then it's not going to convert. So average CPCs can be expensive. And then if that CPC for that term was particularly expensive, let's just say £2.62, some terms can be very expensive, 1,000 searches, that one thing alone could end up costing £1,200 a year. So that's just money wasted. It's just, they shouldn't really be trying to drive people to things they cannot have. And this is where I would come back to what I said earlier about connecting the digital and the physical worlds. So products like SAP Business One, they know about stock availability. They know what I can deliver. They know what I can't deliver. It definitely should be fed up to the website. So the website knows what we've got in stock, which again, in my example, we could see what was out of stock and what was in stock. But that information also needs to be fed right up to our digital advertising platforms as well. So we actually can refine our ads not to serve to people ads that we don't actually have stock for, that we cannot fulfill. And reversing that sort of problem, again, if Barry was looking for a black jumper, we can start to push some of that search trend data back into our Business One platforms to try and help it understand what particular products people may be looking for on site, so that we can actually try and forecast whether or not we're going to have availability in the future. If we suddenly see runs of people looking at certain things, it may mean that we're going to have a lot of orders. So that sort of information flow doesn't necessarily just need to be one way. I'm going to look at another thing as well now that, again, this is just really important, I believe, and it's something that a lot of retail clients, well, in fact, clients in general don't always look at, which is the true profitability. So again, Barry here could be looking for a white t-shirt, and we can see the PLA here with the different product options available to him. And he picks one, he clicks, and he comes through, and let's say that they're spending £420 a month on advertising for that term. When I start looking at that in more detail about actually, let's look at how many people have clicked on it, how much have I spent, how many orders have I got, I may get a screen that looks a little bit like this. This screenshot taken from AdWords, from Google Analytics, and it's just showing me my advertising campaign with the cost and conversions. So I can see at the face glance, it looks like I spent £420. It looks like I've got 50 orders, £20 an order. I've made £1,000. So that gives me an ROI of 2.4. So for every pound I've spent, I get 2.4 back. Profit of £580. That looks rosy, that looks brilliant on face value. But our web analytics platform and AdWords, they don't necessarily know our product margin. So if we take that into consideration and our margin is actually £5 a t-shirt, what that actually means is that those 50 sales have generated us £250 of profit. But if our cost is £420, we're actually losing money on that particular sale. So again, straight away, what looked rosy on the slide before suddenly turns not so rosy on this when we're looking at the true profitability. And again, this comes back to connecting this digital and physical world. Our SAP platforms know about margin. We should be feeding that into our website. And again, we should be feeding that all the way up stack to our advertising platforms so we can have better informed decisions. We can actually start to take margin into account when we're serving adverts to make sure we, A, don't overspend, or if we do want to do loss leading, at least we're aware of it. So I'm now going to move away from sort of looking at the actual search and the product side of things. So just look at some of the information you can get around from search itself, and that's trends. So this is just showing a trend for Christmas jumpers, search trend from Google, which allows us to see when people are looking for things. So you may have people whose role it is to merchandise or buy product, but again, we have data out there that's telling us when people are looking for things and when does that start. We can also look at on-site behavioural trends, and this is a slide a little bit off topic, but the reason I put that in here is this is looking at recipes, and in Web Analytics we're able to start to look and break down what people look at on our website by are they male or female, and if we look at and put interaction tracking, we can see what do they actually read. So if we take that behavioural data to see what people are looking at on site and feed that back to our ERP tool, we can start to try and understand and predict when people may purchase particular things and what groups of people may purchase things, all based on the data that's surfaced in the digital world. So coming back to my sort of diagram but reversed, the digital world can collect some behavioural data. We feed that back into our real world, into our products like SAP Business One, and then we can start to use that information to help inform when products need to be ordered. So we can look at search trends for particular product types, for example, to see, oh, hang on a sec, Christmas jumper trends start in November. I haven't got any in stock. Better start thinking about that now. We can try and use that to understand future demand. And then we can look at our on-site web behavioural data to look at what products may be hot. And again, we can look at what features are important to customers, and we can start to tie that into the data in the real world to say, well, yeah, the reason we've got loads of these things and we're not selling them is no one looks at them and no one's interested in those features. So we're kind of like bringing these two bits of data together so we actually can make real true insights. So I want to touch briefly on a very hot topic in the world at the moment, which is machine learning. I'm sure people have seen or maybe used the Google Vision API or the Bing Vision APIs that recognize pictures. You may or may not have used Google Translate, that you can go to a foreign country and put your phone over the menu and it will translate it for you. You may have read about self-driving cars. All of these things are made possible by machine learning. And Google have been pushing a real initiative through to try and make that sort of information more accessible to all. So again, we can start to take data from our web, or actually we could take it from SAP Business One. We could start investigating and using machine learning models to try and predict what's going to happen and feed this back into things like stock replenishment or whatever we might want to do in the offline world when certain conditions occur. So rather than do that based upon, like, for example, stock falls below 10 shirts or something like that, we could actually feed it all of our last year's order history and say, look, here's everything that's happened. Predict to me and tell me when this item is going to suddenly stop being in stock, so I know and I can put a marker in or whatever to reorder it. So machine learning is going to be something that's going to become key in what we do. And that's all about making sure we can get data out of our different systems into a model that we can teach and say, look, these are the inputs, what do we want success to look like? So just to wrap up, and thank you for listening to me, just some key takeouts. So in today's digital world, we have more demand for product. So think about where product exists and make sure it's in terms of the systems, and make sure it's shared so we know, so system A knows what's available and what's not available. And then insight. Make sure we're sharing margin data or anything else that might be relevant with analytics and any advertising platform or other system that might find that useful. And then leverage trend and behavioural data to help predict future demand. If you've got information in a system that's useful, do think of, again, of pushing that back to other systems that may find that information valuable as well. So I'm going to hand over to Paul now, who's hopefully going to take you through some of the SAP side of things.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. So, yep, as Matt said, I'm Paul. I'm planning on sort of telling you or talking a little bit about some of the problems that we see our customers facing, potentially how we would approach an implementation and solving the issues, and then maybe telling you a little bit about SAP towards the end. So, as Matt said, often we see a lot of companies in a good position where they're having a upturn in growth, lots of orders coming through, and that highlights their inefficiencies in their systems. And this is different in different scenarios, but quite often there's more manual work involved in updating systems, making transactions flow through the business, and things like, people are wanting to expand overseas or fulfill overseas orders that they're struggling to do, and just having difficulties around true profitability reporting or stocking information in the right sort of quantities. Either they've got too much and they're tying up too much money in stock, or they're facing sellouts, which again aren't good. So some of the business problems, sort of, I suppose broadly speaking, can be sort of grouped together in sort of lack of visibility and lack of control, lots and lots of time being wasted either firefighting or trying to resolve issues, or quickly trying to find stock where you haven't got enough or you're ordering it too late. And I suppose ultimately running your business on guesswork rather than facts. And it usually gets to a bit of a pinch point where people either think we either invest in our systems or we start adding more headcount to deal with the inefficiencies. But and that's usually where we start joining the picture or the party, if you like, and we sort of have a look at your requirements. The first thing we always say though is do your systems need to be replaced? Because quite often we see people with good solid systems, but maybe they're not getting the most out of them. So we see some regular reasons, some valid reasons and some unvalid reasons really for people changing their systems. So if I start with some of the non-valid reasons, quite often we'll see people with a good strong system, but it just hasn't been implemented well, or it's been implemented a while ago and it's just not really being maintained. So we don't really see that as a valid reason for change. Or there's been a lot of knowledge attrition over the years. So a system's been put in, a team of people worked with it, they've left the business, that wasn't really, information was passed on, so it went with them, and it's sort of gone out of the business with them. Or sometimes we benefit from this where a new management team may come in and decide that SAP is a system that they want and just implement, but that might not be a valid reason to put a new system in. So there's some of the non-valid reasons. Some of the valid reasons are things like, ultimately, if the system can't do what you need it to do, or if it's a bespoke package that's not really being invested in and it's becoming the end of its life, or the users just, however hard they try, they just really can't get on with it. So we see reasons like that as being very valid. Something to note though is whatever system that you have, you hope you're going to implement it, it's going to achieve 100% of your, or close to 100% of your requirements when it's implemented. But things change, things move, and over time your business requirements will evolve. So I think it's important that people continue to invest in a system, whatever system that is, to ensure that that delta doesn't grow over time. It's like having a car. If you bought a car, brand new car, you're going to accept that you're going to need to have it serviced. So that's kind of an analogy we use here. So if you decide that you are going to look at systems, how do you go about it? Again, things have changed in recent years. The internet has made it a lot easier for people to track down information and do their research. So in the days gone past, people used to employ external consultants to help them select a system, they used to produce very large documents which were referred to as ITTs, or invitations to tenders, of 1,001 questions of basic things that can your system raise an invoice? Can it hold a stock record? The market's moved on. People can do that, and these things take an enormous amount of time to put together for you guys, but also to complete. So that trend is sort of gone away a bit, and we really encourage a DIY, do-it-yourself approach, because it is fairly straightforward. What we tend to see now nowadays is people putting together a defined list of requirements that is your key business processes, 6 or 7 or 10 key processes, and get the relevant suppliers, once you've done your research, to demonstrate those to you. I think key considerations when you're looking at systems, obviously things like functional breadth, ensure that it's going to do everything that you want today, but also in the future. The structure, whether it's a joined up system, whether it's a separate back office system with extra bits and pieces bolted on, customer relationship management, product lifecycle management, for example. How easy is to integrate with, especially in the fashion and retail market. Integration is usually a big thing. People are wanting to integrate with a point of sale system, they want to integrate with an e-commerce platform. How easy is that to integrate with? Because ultimately, once all of that data resides in the central system, that's where we're going to be able to report on it. And how easy is it to report on it? Can you write those kind of reports yourself? Technology and scalability. Is it going to scale in terms of volume of transactions where you think you're going to be in 5 years' time? Because people ultimately would hope to have a system like SAP or one of its competitors for at least 5 years. So is it going to be there? Can it cope with a transaction volume? Can it cope with your international expansion plans? So if you're looking to open up offices in overseas countries, can it cater for that? Obviously, in the pedigree is really important. I've been doing this for 18, 19 years, and we've seen so many products come and go, and the lifeblood of these products is the authors. So just looking at their size, their scalability, how big they are, what they invest in R&D, things like that, because that's key. And value, and that doesn't necessarily mean picking the product that's the most expensive or the most cheapest, but it's ensuring that you're paying the right amount of money for the level of the system that you need, because you don't want to pay too much, but at the same time it's probably more of an issue if you pay too little. So the process can literally take I won't go through this too much, but it's pick some vendors that you feel are going to be a good fit, and give them some time, sort of liaise with them, and then give them the opportunity to come in and ask requirements, get them to demonstrate the key things that are going to be relevant for you. Take up references, speak to your competitors, speak to your customers, come in and see them. We try and, here at Sapphire, we try and recommend people really come in and get a feel for us as a business, so you really understand what you're buying, but who you're buying it from. So a couple of features on SAP, because the team asked me to talk about them. And I wasn't that familiar with them as a company before I started working with them, but they're enormous. You can see their size, 20 billion turnover. They've got 52% of the world market share of business software. So you could take everybody that produces customer relationship management systems, accounting systems, design systems, you put them all in one pot, and SAP are bigger than everybody collectively. And this is their product of choice for the mid-market, and you can see it's used by thousands and thousands of companies, and it's really on the up. 63% of the world's business transactions go through SAP systems, but a lot of people say that they assume it's only for enormous companies, but 80% of their clients are in this space. What is it? And I suppose SAP's view of the world is almost one business, one system. So it offers you a completely joined up solution that will cover the various parts of your business, and I'll go through those in a minute, but with the idea being it's something that's easy to maintain, it can streamline your processes and gives you very easy access to data regardless of where it is in your business. So you get a nice wide range of modules there, which can follow the process really. So from all the way through the design process, the critical path, producing your tech packs and the collaboration with factories, right the way through to merchandising, order management, manufacturing for anybody that produces that, or outsourced manufacturing to the Far East, and then obviously your sales order processing all the way through into your financials too, as Matt said, so you can start feeding in your demand to ensure that you've got enough stock in the right places at the right times, but also then seeing your true profitability by channel, by region, by area, etc. In the past, we've seen so much consolidation in our market where big software vendors are acquiring smaller companies. And years gone past, you would have some very niche software providers in a particular sector, but we're seeing that's becoming harder and harder for companies like that to compete with the likes of SAP or Oracle or Microsoft, for example. So what we're seeing now is you're seeing industry standard packages like SAP, but being delivered with an industry solution. So here within ours, we have an industry solution for the in this example, the fashion and footwear. So you get the benefit of having a standard system that's used by thousands and thousands of clients, but with a vertical on top of it, which goes into real depth, that's been written by somebody that lives and breathes that market. SAP, it offers you lots of flexibility. You can have it on-premise, you can put it as in the cloud, your cloud, our cloud, you can consume it any which way you want. The other thing that we're seeing, so the industry analysts say there's a shift coming in the accounting and ERP market, and that's basically people, and Matt alluded to it, people want more data. You want quicker access to data, you want more visuals, and you want an instant 360 on your business. And certain tools out there, SQL Server is probably the most established database tool in there, but the industry analysts say the market's moving towards in-memory computing, and that's basically how it can pull back data quicker. And SAP have their in-memory computing available already. It's a product called HANA, and that basically can run, they say, 5 times the speed of SQL Server, but it basically gives the authors a lot of tools to be able to present lots of data very quickly. They can produce sliders, so you can adjust some sliders and it'll recalculate your whole business and present data within seconds. But I'll show you a couple of those examples. The other thing that's usually key in this market is flexibility. So quite often it's holding lots of attributes against products and that you're going to want to report on. So again, the system is very easy to extend, so you can capture any information that you want that might not necessarily be off the shelf. The other thing that's important is integration, and SAP has a integration layer which makes it very easy for us to integrate into external systems. So a good one that we do all the time is Magento. Probably Magento is the most commonly used e-commerce platform that we see. We have a pre-packaged integration routine that we can just plug and play, which typically, as Matt sort of said, it will take your product information, push it up to the website with all of the relevant attributes, and then bring down your orders. So these transactions can start flowing through your business automatically. Then quite typically we'll integrate with an external warehouse. So again, that goes out to those guys. We can process your transactions with literally minimal headcount. So the feedback that we tend to get from our clients is, I think, solid and robust and nice and easy to use, but low cost of ownership. Obviously, once these systems do take a fair amount of money to implement year one, but once they're in, you would hope that they're fairly low cost of ownership, and it should be there for a good 5-10 years to run. But ultimately, what it's getting to is streamlining the process and then giving you one version of the truth. Gets away from the data sitting in the various silos, putting it in one central place, and then giving you the reporting tools that can easily extract that data. So here's a few examples of clients that we work with in this space. So if I touch on touch on a few that have different requirements. So we're working with people like EverDirect and Paul Donici. These guys, probably the most important part for them was the design process. So they design products on behalf of the high street supermarkets. They design them, they take them to the supermarkets, they'll get them manufactured overseas, they'll go through the critical path and all of the sampling, and then they'll supply them to the supermarkets. So what most of us will go and buy in the high street, these guys will work with. People like Central Trade, that they basically bring in, if you've heard of Birkenstock footwear, they bring in all of the Birkenstocks into the UK, but they've got two sides of the business, which quite often we see. They'll have one company which will handle the wholesale, one side which will handle retail, and again you've got SAP can handle both. People like Turnbull and Asser is a good example of where we needed a lot of integration. So, and they had issues around managing the omni-channel. So Turnbull and Asser produce very high-end shirts and ties, about as high-end as you can get. They kit out people like Hugh Hefner and Prince Charles. But so they needed a system that was going to cater to start off with wholesale, then roll into retail. They had Magento at the front end, they had an external warehouse, and then they had a POS system. And we needed to put a single system in that tied all of that together and was the heart, so transactions could flow through. We did that in the UK, and then we rolled it out into the US. But they're the kind of projects that every project's different, but there's just a couple of examples. So Sapphire, so we've been around for 25 years or so, in different guises, but yeah, last 23 years as Sapphire Systems, and this is what we do. We implement two systems, SAP Business One and Sun Systems, and we specialise at helping people through the sales process, helping people implementing it, and then supporting you going forward. One thing that we've noticed a lot over the recent years is how even smaller businesses are becoming more international. So if I took a client on the previous slide there, Staples or Turnbull and Asser, they've rolled the system out into a few countries, and that's becoming more common. So we've set ourselves up so we can offer global support and try and position ourselves as a one-stop shop, so we can implement SAP anywhere you like around the globe and offer a joined-up support service that will support you whichever region you're in, and a lot of clients find that useful. In terms of staff, we're 220. This year our turnover will be around about 30 million. And yeah, we're very proud to be SAP's #1 partner in the UK. The guys then just asked me just to give you a bit of visuals about what would a solution like SAP look like. So I picked a few areas that I just wanted to touch on. So I mentioned analytics. That's ultimate. I suppose the clients that we speak to, as I mentioned, they're going to want to. People buy SAP because they want to get efficiency gains, and that's usually by streamlining processes. And then once you've got those processes defined and streamlined, then it's providing reporting and analytics on that data. So this is a good example of how you can see that data. You can define whatever KPIs or key performance indicators that you need. So whether it's total sales, cash at bank, items sold, you can define any of these, what's going to be important to you. So as soon as you log on to the system, it'll present you with that. It will show you things like, these are your activities that you need to do today. This is anything that's deviated a particular range or a set of settings. And here's your sales figures, for example. So you don't have to go and look for it. The system will then present that to you. You can then start following your transactions through very easily. So here, if you wanted to look at a process map and see a particular item or see what's going on with it, it's all around sort of clicking on an item, right-clicking and seeing, let me drill down to that information regardless. So you might look at a product, you might drill down to a sales order that then reverts back to a purchase order and again back to a SKU. You can see all of that information quickly, instantly, resolve the issue, move on. The system, this is probably more relevant for somebody in a wholesale environment here, but again, you've got a real 360 view of a customer. So just by looking at this record, you can see what orders are outstanding, what have we quoted them for, what are they waiting for a delivery on, what notes, what conversations we have with them, show me their last, their sales figures over the last 3 months. Any of this information that you want, you can just have the system presenting it just so it's easy access to data. And again, this can then follow right the way through into customer relationship management if you want. So, if you're dealing with wholesalers that are going to be distributing items for you, what are their forecasts like? What are you expecting to come in? When's that going to be needed? When's it going to be available? So again, that can then you can start using that for marketing, but then you can also use that for demand planning. So again, coming back to Matt's point, ensuring that we know we're about to have an upturn in a particular line or a season or a range, then make sure we've got the product to fulfill. We can then start managing items at a nice detailed level here. So as you would expect, you could hold a style, manage all of the attributes that you're going to want in this space. So the attributes around sizes, the attributes around color charts. You can then use this to produce your points of measurements, your logos, your manufacturing instructions. You can build up your cost sheets and all your data and use this as a repository then just to collect all of that information around the individual SKUs that you're going to be managing. But this also then presses right the way back into that design process. So a lot of systems out there will cater with a product once it's been created, but SAP pushes right the way back into sort of the product lifecycle management. So you can then split individual designers to be working on particular ranges or seasons, and then manage that through the critical path process. So again, you've got a season's launch. When does everything need to be in place by? Tracking everything's hitting its particular gateways to ensure that, again, the seasons and the designs and the processes are all going to be ready in time for the launch, and you're not going to be facing as a big launch, lots of advertising going in and not having the product to fulfill. And again, this can be viewed at an individual level, like the previous screen, but then we can see all of this at a group level in a Gantt chart, for example. So this is an example of a sourcing report, ensuring that there's various stages that things are going to go through prior to being launched. Another area where SAP is very good is just quickly giving you access to information around products again. So if you're looking at a particular purchase order, for example, and there's been a delay in a shipment, what else is going to what's going to be affected by that? So any document you can right click and you can say, show me a tree on this, and it will literally show you all of the joined up documents to give you clear visibility into what else is affected. Let me see what that's going to relate to. Okay, how do I resolve that? And the system, as you would expect, it's collecting all of this data, and it then gives you a whole world of reporting capabilities, and that's something that we've really seen change over the last few years. Everybody wants more data. Everybody wants graphical data, and SAP, we feel, are leading the charge with that, with their acquisition of Business Objects. Now that they can bring these high-level reporting tools and make them available and cost-effective, and give you something that you can very much own and manage. So you can produce these reports, and then you can visualize them in any which way. So if you wanted to start seeing some data, data sales volumes via territory, or by territory by product, or looking at them in heat maps. So here you've got your different countries, and then your channel across the side, and the darkness means the higher volume in sales. Or looking at things in tag clouds, for example, just to show a few of the new sort of buzz reporting terms that are out there. So looking at the size of the description is the volume of the sales. So that just ran through a bit of an overview. So just passing sort of in summary, Matt's going to take the first couple.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. So just to sort of wrap up from both of us, from my side, really think about where stock exists and make sure that information is shared between systems that may benefit from knowing that. Make sure that things like margin data or any other relevant information is shared with analytics and advertising platforms, and then leverage trend and behavioural data to help you predict future demand. Because again, you're collecting data in that digital world, so it's great to be able to push that down into the real world.
So from my side, it's the sort of try and avoid your data sitting in separate silos, because that ultimately makes it hard for it to flow through the business, and it makes it very difficult to report on. So we try and advise that people have a very much a joined up strategy from your back end, so systems like SAP, to your front end system. So whether it's an e-commerce platform like Magento, a POS system of whichever, and just try and have a holistic view of how the system's going to work. So that takes us to the end of the session. So I believe, Heather, have you got questions?
You both did very well, thanks for that. So I have some questions for you, and I don't know which one of you wants to take them on, or maybe you'd like to have a go together. But maybe you can share with the audience and sort of how long a typical implementation would take.
They can vary, so they do, but they usually start, I would say, from, I suppose we break it down into an implementation of SAP will be broken down into a design phase, a build phase, a testing phase, and a go live phase. The quickest they would usually go in is a month for each, so 4 months. But it depends on, I suppose, what would impact that is how complex this system is. So typically, sort of 4 to 5 months for a fairly straightforward implementation. If it was quite big with lots of countries and lots of integration points, maybe a year would be more typical for that. But it really depends on, quite often it's more determined by the customer than us, because obviously they need to keep up with the various phases, and it's a joint project.
Brilliant. Okay, what kind of companies would benefit most from this such type of system?
I think I'll take that one again. It's usually the companies that, I suppose, the ones that are going to benefit the most are probably the ones with the most inefficient systems, really. And where do the systems tend to struggle? I think it comes down to probably where the data is very disjointed. So, for example, if I pick some examples that I've seen in the past, it's where you've got a separate accounting system like Sage, you've got a separate order management system, which is taking orders, and then you're trying to plug in an e-commerce system, and it's very difficult to do that. Often we see a lot of inefficiencies where people have got maybe one system in the UK, and then they've got, they need to put another system into, so they've got something quite small and domestic in the UK. They then want to roll out to the US, which is quite common. And that system won't meet the local needs in the region, so they then start getting separate systems, and then you just magnify your problem, because then you're trying to plug your point of sale system into it, and then an e-commerce platform on top of it, and it all gets a bit messy. So we kind of see clients with very disjointed systems are the ones that probably get the biggest benefit by standardizing across the group. But it varies from case to case.
Of course, that makes a lot of sense. So how do you handle interaction with external parties, like overseas manufacturers, for example?
So it depends. So sometimes if some of the clients that we work with own the manufacturers, so they will then give them access to SAP, so they would use it like a user of the system, so that can be quite straightforward. The system's very good at producing things like what we call the tech packs, or the all of the design instructions, and sending it over to them. That works okay. It's very good at its languages, so we can produce them in, we can manage it in the UK in English, and then convert that into another language. Quite often though, the factories overseas will be servicing many clients. So in that case, and they're not owned by the person that's having the goods produced, it's more of a sort of buyer-seller relationship. For there, we have a number of collaboration portals, again, so that have been designed for collaborating and sharing information. So we can then pass up all of our tech packs. They can update their information, and we can share on there things like critical path actions and all of the activities that go through the various stage prior to the gold seal, bond seal sampling, prior to a launch being created.
Is it true, Paul, as well? You're a bit like us with external parties that involve them, get them around the table, so that if there's any particular thing that you need to iron out, you don't just force something upon them. You sit down and listen to the requirements at the outset.
Yeah, bringing them on and giving them a tool that's going to ultimately make everybody's life easier tends to sort of get a common goal across the team, really.
Your fans.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting buy-in from everybody is mostly the battle with a lot of things, isn't it? That's definitely important. Well, thank you very much, both of you. Today I've actually been given a question, funnily enough. A couple of people have asked me the same thing. Will we be publishing a replay version if they've missed it today or they popped in a bit late? Yes, we will. We're actually making a recording as we speak, so we'll be loading it onto Just Style for you in the next day or so, and we'll just email a direct link out to everyone who's registered to view see the webinar today. So this is something, again, if you weren't at the beginning, you'll be able to at least catch up and share with your colleagues. So, but as I say, thank you for the two speakers we had today, Matt and Paul. Thanks very much for sharing your experiences and for taking the time out with us, and thank you to everybody who took the time out of their busy work day to view this webinar with us today. And if you have any questions, you can see on the screen now some of the contact details for both Sapphire Systems and 4Ps if you would like to put any questions to either of them. If you suddenly have a burning question tomorrow that you've forgotten to ask, you can email through to myself. By all means, I'm Heather at aroq.com, and I'll be happy to push anything through to Sapphire and 4Ps for you if needs be. So I think we'll let both Paul and Matt have the rest of their day and go and have a cup of tea. So thanks, gents, for taking the time out with us today.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
No problem. Look forward to hearing from you again. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you.